if you would have tapped me on the shoulder back in July and said, you know what, Matty B, back or at the NHL All-Star break this year, the Flyers would find themselves at 500 and only 6 points out of a playoff spot, I would think you were crazy. But guess what, folks? That's where we are tonight. Flyers have found their way to their NHL mandated break that will bleed into the All-Star break, and they are at 21-21-9 team, 6 points out of the final playoff spot in the Eastern Conference. Good evening and welcome back to Clear the Ice, a Flyers postgame show here on the Edge of Philly Sports with your boy Matty B. I'm back again. I was with you the other night. Now I'm back here tonight, and a complete great game. I mean, this was such a pleasure to watch from the beginning to the end. It wasn't one of those games where they kind of dipped and dove and up and down and flipped and flopped. They were a solid team against a very solid Winnipeg Jet hockey club tonight in Winnipeg. The Flyers 4-0 winners, thus bringing themselves to that 500 mark heading into the All-Star break and the NHL mandated break here in 2023. And 10-4-2 since their holiday break. They're beating teams. Now, I know the big thing is they're not beating teams with quality records or quality playoff teams. Well, Winnipeg was a quality playoff team. They are the second team in the Central Division, and I guess by like default, they're like the third team or fourth seed in the West. But tonight, definitely in stark contrast in the last time the Flyers played the Jets back in Philadelphia, and it was just a great thing to see. Carter Hart stops 40 shots tonight en route to his first shutout of the season, fourth of his career. And the cast of unlikely characters, the cast of audition players that this team has been kind of rolling out all season long, the Noah Cates, the Morgan Frost, the Wade Allisons, the Owen Tippett's, well, they were on full display tonight as they chipped in immensely and on the offensive game, really kind of showing their growth as hockey players, their growth as professionals, and obviously their growth under the John Tortorella system. And it was just a beautiful game. One of the best games the Flyers have played this season by far. And let's take you right into the action, shall we? Because this was a good one and a fun one to talk about. The Flyers would get up on the board early. 15-15 mark of the first period. Noah Cates, who finds himself playing a ton of top line, first line, quality minutes. Call it because of the Couturier injury or Cam Atkinson or just nobody else, whatever. But he's taken the most out of his opportunity, and it's really starting to show by his play. His 8th goal of the year for Morgan Frost and Owen Tippett. That was your score at the end of the first. In the second, the recently recalled Kiefer Bellows. It's funny because I was on this show the other night, and I believe his name was Eric, who kept chiming in and asking me questions, and he mentioned Kiefer Bellows as a potential trade target. And I said, well, the Flyers probably wouldn't get anything for him because they ended up picking him up as a DFA guy anyway earlier in the season. Well, tonight, Kiefer Bellows returns to the Flyers, registers his first goal of the season. It was from Risto and Noah Cates at 11:53 of the second period. 2-0 Flyers. That is how we entered the third period. And then two very, very pretty goals. The first one, Owen Tippett at 3:11 of the third. Credit to Risto for this, deep in his zone. Sees Tippett out there around the blue line, a beautiful pass that splits the defenders. Tippett grabs the puck, does a complete loop-de-loop around center ice, splits the defenders, goes in on the break, and just beat the crap out of the Winnipeg goalie to make it 3-0. And then Tony DeLangelo, his 9th of the year at 6:48 from Scott Lawton, and another one of them highlight-type goals, as this was a gorgeous 2-on-1 pass execution across a cross pass top shelf one timer by Tony DeAngelo, sorry, to make it 4-0 Flyers, and that is how it would end tonight in Winnipeg. The Flyers are winners handily, and as I mentioned multiple times, they now enter into the All-Star break / NHL mandated break at 21-21-9, and boy, can you believe it, folks? Yeah, hey, how you doing? It's amazing. It's amazing. No one saw this coming, and if you did, you're a better man than me, because obviously, this season's been a mix of let's lose for Connor and let's fire Chuck Fletcher. Nowhere in any of that was there the Flyers were going to be a 500 club and find themselves 6 points out of the final playoff spot in the East heading into the All-Star break. But here we stand, and it's is it Is it a beautiful thing? I really am split on this, and it's probably going to be something that's going to bother me the rest of the season. But you know what? That's not going to bother me the rest of the season, and that's what's happening here on the Edge of Philly Sports because there is a ton of stuff happening. Here is the full slate of shows that have come and gone this week. We have a lot more left to go. Tomorrow is a huge day here on the network, but earlier today it was the Patterson Fanatics. Uh, we had some Sixers Nuggets post game. Sixers with a huge win today. Joel Embiid went off, and then you're clearing the ice with me tonight. Then tomorrow we got PM in the AM, and then we got you covered on the NFC at Championship Day. Eagles pregame and postgame, folks. We're not going to do a halftime show. How do I know that? Because you're going to be with me. That's right. I am going to be hosting the pregame and the postgame show tomorrow on Eagles Game Day Live here on the Edge of Philly. Me and Mike Lara are going to take you through pregame, and then we're also going to talk some postgame. And then tomorrow night, after all the smoke is cleared from a crazy, insane Philadelphia sports weekend, the all across all the time boys with Gary Grube, they will finish out the weekend in style. And as I mentioned, Game Day Live, Eagles Game Day Live tomorrow here on the Edge of Philly Sports, pregame and postgame. We're not doing halftime, but we are going to do a pregame and postgame show. I will be hosting along with Mike Laro, and we're going to break you down and get you ready for this Eagles 49er game as again a huge day and a huge weekend in Philadelphia sports. And if you cannot get to the game, right? If you for some odd reason cannot make it down to the link, then you need to head over to the Dolan's Bar over there in Delco. Every single game they got memorabilia giveaways, great drink specials, and then tomorrow I believe it's a free buffet. It's a free buffet tomorrow for the NFC Championship game. Stop on down to Delco's and enjoy yourself. Enjoy yourself because you definitely deserve it. Let's get on to some more stat lines here. Let's talk some team stats. Let's talk some kind of poignant moments of this game. The Flyers tonight were outshot 33-40. It did not matter. As I mentioned, Carter Hart with the shutout, his first of the season, his fourth of his career. The Flyers did go 0 for 2 on the power play, but they also held the Winnipeg Jets 0 for 3 on the power play. The Flyers' futility on the power play does continue. 25 now for 154 on the season. That works out to about a 16% effective rate. And if you're keeping score at home like I am, folks, since last season, since the 2021-22 season, the Flyers have gone 53 for 387 on the power play, man. Woo! 13% effective on the power play over the last two seasons. Again, it wasn't Michel Therrien. For those of you who are still dying on that hill, it wasn't him. With the 4 goals tonight, the Flyers now raised their goals for average to 141 on the season. Averages out to about 2 3/4 a game. They've given up 167, which is about 3.2 a game. Their shots for is 1,535. Averages out to about 30 shots a game, and their shots against are 1,617. That's about 32%. As the Flyers, as I mentioned, get to the All-Star break this season. Your 3-star honors of the game, how could it be nobody other than Carter Hart, who I am not the biggest Carter Hart fan. Far be it. I believe he is as tradable as anybody else is on this team, and I'm not coming off that. I still think that what these games are doing, it's twofold, right? It's showing off the young talent that this team has, and it's also presenting some trade opportunities to some teams out there that might be looking to kind of step over that hump, or as we move down through the playoff stretch or playoff run. These are some players that teams might want to consider. Carter Hart tonight, 40 saves, a 1,000 save percentage. Owen Tippett gets your 2nd-star nod. We had a goal and assist. Noah Cates, your 3rd-star recipient, 1 goal and 1 assist. And boy, oh boy, it was a beautiful, beautiful game tonight. I mean, we all have. We've all suffered through this entire season. We've all sat down from time to time, and you've all done it. Don't tell me you haven't. You sat there, started watching. They get down 3-0. You're like, oh, man, this is so bad. This is so frustrating. Then they find their way back into the game, make it a game, maybe tie it up at 3. And you're like, okay, let's make a run. And then they give up that late goal where they get to overtime and they blow it in overtime. And it's just like you're just spent with the emotion that you invested in the last 2.5, 3 hours. Tonight, folks, was not one of those nights. It was Flyers from the beginning to the end. Just a complete game, complete team effort. And that is why they won 4-0 over a very good Winnipeg Jet team, an extremely good Winnipeg Jet team, a playoff team in the Winnipeg Jets, proving that at least they can skate with them. Now, are they the Boston Bruins? No. Got that. But we're going to take this thing one step at a time. Let's check some scores around the league tonight as a lot of these teams are heading into their NHL mandated breaks. Some teams are not. Everybody, of course, will get to the All-Star break at the end of the week, and then some teams that did not go through their week off will get it later on. But the Flyers, of course, are going through theirs now. It starts tonight. I don't know what I'm going to do for a week with no Flyers hockey. Games that have gone final earlier tonight. The Avalanche defeated the St. Louis Blues 4-2. The Panthers defeated the Boston Bruins in overtime 4-3. So that's good news for us Eastern Conference folks. The Senators also blanked the Canadiens 5-0. The Sharks defeated the Pittsburgh Penguins 6-4, and the Lightning beat the Kings 5-2. And in overtime, the Islanders over the Golden Knights 2-1. Games that are still currently underway or in progress in the NHL. Buffalo and Minnesota are knotted up at 2. They are in the second period, heading towards the first intermission out there in Edmonton. It's 1-0 Oilers over the Blackhawks, and also heading into the first intermission, it's 1-0 Seattle over the Columbus Blue Jackets. And that is your action around the league. And a little snapshot at the standings, as I mentioned, 51 games complete, 21 wins, 21 losses, 9 ties or 9 non-losses or overtime losses / shootout losses. Good for 51 points. It finds the Flyers 6 points behind the Pittsburgh Penguins for that final wild card position in the Eastern Conference. They are chasing Florida, the Islanders, and the Sabres, all for that last playoff spot. At least it's going to be a fun stretch run, right? So I guess you can ask for, keep you kind of involved in all this. Out in the Western Conference, we mentioned it. Dallas Stars, Winnipeg Jets, and the Colorado Avalanche are your Central Division leaders. Your Pacific Division leaders, Vegas, LA, and Seattle. Currently, Edmonton and Calgary are your wild cards. You also have Minnesota, Nashville, and on the outside, kind of way outside looking in, is the St. Louis Blues, and then the rest of the Western Conference as we get to the NHL's unofficial midway point here for the All-Star break. And as we get ready for that All-Star break, and as we get ready to endure 1 week, because the Flyers will not be back in action until February 6th against the Islanders, as we get ready for that 1 week of no Flyers hockey, what are some of the things that if you were like in charge of the Flyers, if you were the GM, or if you were, I'm not saying if you're Chuck Fletcher, at least I'm not saying that, but if you were in charge of making some decisions about this team, what are you doing here? Are you fielding calls? Are you more like, you know what? Let's see where we can go with this. How are you going to go into the back half of the season, and what should you expect, or what should we expect? Again, I go back to the opening of my show. If you would have tapped me on the shoulder and said at the All-Star break, the Flyers will be 21-21-9 and 6 points out of the final wild card spot in the East, I would have called you crazy. And I've also would have called you, bad karma, because I don't want that drama. I don't want to have that drama of that position. I want to be like dead last in the conference. I want to be way out of this thing. I want to be sharpening my Connor Bedard blades. I want to be getting ready for that. But now we find ourselves, and I hate to say it, but it's true. We're in the thick of this. We are in the thick of the playoff race in the East. How do we go forward? How do the Flyers go forward? And what do you expect of the Flyers to go forward and do over the next 30 some odd games or 29 games? How many ever games are left now on the schedule? I don't know the answer to that question. And I'm not a tanking fan, but I'm still not going to come off the fact that regardless of whether we get in as the 8th seed or the 7th seed, we're not winning a Stanley Cup. We're not. We're just not. There's no reason for anyone that we are. So are we going to kind of continue to muddle in purgatory, or is it time to just kind of and get it over with? But, there's a lot of good for what's happening tonight, or a lot of good that's been happening since the holidays, since Christmas. I mentioned 10-4-2 since the Christmas break. We're seeing, not only are we seeing some growth from players, which obviously is the number one thing you want to see, but we're seeing growth of the system. We're seeing whatever John Tortorella is doing behind closed doors kind of taking root on the ice. The accountability has returned to this team. The fire has returned to this team. The work ethic, the blue collar Philadelphia thing, whatever you want to call it, has returned, and it hasn't been here for years. Years we've been a flat, going through the motion type of team. Even when we were getting in the playoffs a couple of years or 3 or 4 years ago, all during that time. But you can definitely see not only the maturation of players and the growth of players, but you can see the growth of a system, and a system that's being bought into by these players. And that is what I think going forward into the future, next season, the season after that, is the most important thing to kind of hold on to, is that we have returned from the abyss. We are now a team that has somewhat of an identity. It may not have the identity that we're looking for yet, but it's on its way to a direction to an identity. Maybe that's what I want to say. Maybe they have a direction for an identity because they have a coach who has a system it's working, the players are buying in, and it's showing on the ice. Again, I mentioned this last time, or the last time I was on this show the other night. This is the same essentially talent team from last season. And it might be a little worse because we didn't have Claude Giroux this year. But yet, they are leaps and bounds better than the team from last year. Why is that? It's system. It's the coach. It's what's being done behind closed doors. It's what's happening inside that dressing room. It's what's happening on the ice in Voorhees during playoffs, during practice. That's how you start. You build the culture, and then the rest will follow and fall into place. So I don't know the ultimate direction of this team, and I don't know the ultimate landing spot of this team in 22-23. Sit here at 500 heading into the All-Star break. Some people are happy, some people are not. But you got to throw out the record. It doesn't matter. That doesn't really matter at the end of the day. What matters is the health of this organization, the health of this franchise. And right now, they have a pulse. They are beating, they are breathing on the table right now because of what this coach has brought here and what these players have adopted. Now, we all know John Tortorella's shelf life is not uber long. It's not. It runs out in about 4 years. So there is a clock on this. And there's got to be some moves made in order to kind of take full advantage of this. But you got to be happy. You got to be happy for what you're seeing out of this team, especially since Christmas, as they find themselves in this position. And it's a great thing, man. It really, really is. And you just got to look deeper inside yourself, and you'll see that as well as I do. You know what else is a great thing, guys? Yes. Man, I love the segues. Philly Sports Trips. Don't forget, tomorrow, huge day in Philadelphia sports history. The Birds Ultimate Tailgate will be going down tomorrow at January 29th, 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. Head over to phillysportstrips.com and see how you can become part of that. And this is it, right? It's all on the table tomorrow, man. A trip to Arizona and Super Bowl 57. Philly Sports Trips has you covered for that as well. The Birds Ultimate Arizona Trip Part 2 on February 10th to the 13th. It only takes $500 to reserve your seat. And if things don't go as planned tomorrow, they will completely refund that $500 for you. And speaking about tomorrow, if you're still scraping and scrapping and looking for tickets, look no further than Sherry's Ticket Town. No great prices and no hidden fees. Sports, concerts, and theaters. www.sherrytickets.com. Family owned and operated since 1946. Head over there, find what you're looking for, enter the promo code EOP10 and receive an additional 10% off. And as this weekend continues on, huge sports day yesterday or today, huge tomorrow. If Monday morning you find your life altered in any kind of negative way, and it has something to do with a workman's compensation question, a motor vehicle accident issue, personal injury concerns, or criminal law trouble, give Mr. David Cherry a call at 610-565-0300 or visit him at www.cherryinjurylaw.com. Tell him the boys at Clear the Ice, EOP, and Matty B sent you over, and he will do his goddamnedest to take care of you and try to work with you and figure out your current situations in life. So yeah. Mike Laro joins me. Mike, we'll be seeing a lot of each other here in about 24 hours. So, Mike, what's going down, man? And Gary says, go Birds. Yeah, go Birds, absolutely. Let's not lose focus on what the real meaning of this weekend is, right? It's all about the Birds. But tonight, at least for a little bit, tonight, at least for a few hours, we can kind of forget about the Birds and look a little bit at the fledgling team of the city as the Flyers. And again, this is another thing why tonight and what has happened this season is such a positive thing is that the Flyers are trying to scrape for any sort of relevance in this city. There's a lot of people that think the Wings or the Union rank ahead of them. So it's time to reclaim that position at least as a top four, right? I'm not talking, they're not going to dethrone the Eagles, but they got to get back up in that list. The Flyers were always number 2 on my list. They were always Eagles, Flyers, Phillies, always that way growing up. But the Flyers have fallen. They've fallen over the years, over other reasons. But that's another thing why what I'm seeing on the ice. Again, I'm not talking about the wins or the losses. I'm talking about the character. I'm talking about the growth. I am talking about the system. I am talking about the accountability, the work ethic, the stuff that has not been relevant or present in this city on this hockey team for a very, very long time is starting to come back. It's starting to take root. It's starting to take hold. And to use a Nick Sirianni reference, what was it? The fertilizer and the flower growing. You know the story. And again, it's not going to pop up a Stanley Cup this year. It may not pop up next year. But if we continue with this and we start bringing in players that fit this type of scheme, we keep the players from this year that have flourished in it. We keep the players here in this year that have grown in it themselves and have taken new steps in it themselves. And then we bring in other players that fit this system better. Then we start seeing something as we move forward into the next couple seasons. So a great win tonight, more than just the win, but the actual growth of this organization. And Mike says a great win. Absolutely, Mike, it was a great win. Hell of a game fight by the Flyers. Gary, I am a Phillies fan. I am so proud of my Phillies team. Sixers won today, Flyers won today. I mean, so yeah. Well, yeah. I agree, Gary. It was a big day today. Joel Embiid, huge game earlier against Denver, and then tonight, of course, the Flyers, and then the piece de resistance, the Eagles tomorrow against the 49ers, and let's hopefully we can finish out a very great Philly sports weekend with all W's across the board. And folks, that is going to wrap me up here on the program tonight. Don't forget, I will be back tomorrow along with Mike Laro, who's been chiming in here tonight. We'll be back and we'll be giving you Eagles EOP's Game Day Live, Eagles Game Day Live here on EOP, the pregame show and the postgame show. You also catch Mike tomorrow morning as him, Pat, and Big Al will get you guys set for your Eagle football Sunday. Again, in the immortal words of the late, great Gene Hockey, good night, good hockey.